And it is on this day, October 21st, 2023, that we have the 1 month mark for HRT. Woo! Hold on, wait. Woo! We've hit 1 month. This is just going to be an overall recap video of what 1 month has been like, which is not going to be a lot, but we'll get there. In this video, we're going to start doing the monthly poem readings, and I'll talk a little bit about my dysphoria slash transness analysis I've been doing for the last month. This should be a shorter video because the last video was kind of long, and recently I've been very busy, and I don't have much to talk about, but I do have a bit. So first, we'll do the little recap of the month, and then we'll do our reading. So to start off, not much has changed. Not much is supposed to change. You can possibly see a bit of acne the first month, but honestly right now I'm experiencing the same level of acne I've been experiencing for years, which is more than usual, but that's always been true for me. So I have acne. Not much has changed there. Voice doesn't happen for several months. A lot of the other effects don't happen for several months. So most of those effects haven't been happening. Two effects that have been happening, which can be related to tea and can also possibly not be related to tea: less sleep. That can be school, that can be stress, that can be everything. But sleep is something that testosterone will mess with later, guaranteed. So it's possible it's messing with it now. We don't know. It's fine. We're vibing. Number two, and this is what's very interesting to me and anyone else who may have this like me, my whole life, as in all of my teenage years as far back as I can remember, I only get dreams, like vivid dreams, not nightmares. Nightmares don't count. Dreams that I remember if my hormones are high. And what's interesting is that the past week and a half, I have been having dreams nonstop. And so part of me is like, testosterone, dreams, maybe not, don't know. But recent years, there's been some studies into like people having more dreams when their monthly cycle comes around. So I think it'd be very interesting to do an analysis on if testosterone can also cause dreams. I don't know. Just an interesting thought. But I think those are the only two things I've actually like noticed. Something that's also interesting is that I'm going through a lot of side things too. And so my inflection and how I speak and how I understand English has been fundamentally changing as well. So when we do these monthly readings, my inflection and how I pronounce things is probably going to change, which won't be caused by testosterone, but it'll just be caused by me changing as a person. So that's going to be very interesting as we go along. I will say that my grammar has gotten a lot worse, so I'm warning everybody. My capacity to speak English is decreasing. Anything else about the 1 month mark? I'm still on the same container as testosterone. I don't know how much is left because I can't check, but I'm still on the same container. Don't need a refill as far as I know, which is rather nice. And I have not missed an application yet. I did have that lurking thought of like, I thought about skipping it yesterday, not because I didn't want to take it, but because I was tired and I just wanted to go to bed, but I needed to put it on before I go to bed. I've been kind of consistent in terms of like applying it at 10:30, but sometimes stuff will get away from me and I'll apply it at like 12:30. Whoops. Today I applied it at 11:30. Not quite 12:30, but you know. So I give it a little bit of leniency, but I try to do it most of the time. I do recommend doing it after you shower and dry, but I understand not being able to shower every day at the same time of day. So I started to give up on that a little bit. Sometimes you gotta shower earlier in the day, and sometimes you just don't have the time to shower that day. It's okay. As long as you do it later. Alright, I think that is most of my summary for the first month. The one other thing we have been doing during this month, I have been slowly, painfully been writing a poem. Now, poetry is not my specialty, period. Poetry is not something I'm good at, period. But in high school, I remember when I had assignments to write poems and work on poetry, I usually had fun with it. It's not something I'm good at, and I don't think I write good poems, but I think it's fun to manipulate words and come up with like alternate meanings for things, or like use juxtaposition and like some like useful context to describe something that's very complicated. So one of the poems I wrote in high school was called Sentimental, and I wrote it because it was my senior year. I was going to graduate and I was feeling sentimental about things. And I pretty much just described the word sentimental in like 6 different stanzas, and all of them were just full of complete contradictions. And what I really like about that is all the contradictions apply. Because the idea of feeling sentimental is kind of a contradiction, if you think about it, in certain regards. So I really enjoyed doing that as a project, and recently in queer literature, which is a class I'm taking, and I'm probably going to do a crossover video between my channels on queer literature, just one, maybe a series, but I'll probably do one. In queer literature, we've been reading a lot of Walt Whitman and free verse stuff, and a lot of queer poetry, a lot of the first queer poets and how they worded things and how they manipulated language to be able to have different meanings behind their words that could be read in a straight context and can be read in a queer context. So because we've been reading a lot of that, I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna write a poem rather than read a bunch of quotes that I know, rather than read a Sanderson quote, because Sanderson's kind of temporary in my life. I figured that it'd be more meaningful if I wrote something that I read each month for my voice thing. So I did. Before we read it, I want to emphasize that this might not be the final version. This may change a little bit in the next few months as I keep reading it, because I only finished it today and I'm not completely happy with it. I'm a lot happier with it than my previous editions, but it may change a little bit through the months. Just be aware that this is not the final edition, but I did write this. If people want an explanation of like what I was thinking with a lot of these lines, I can give that, or I can leave it a mystery. Poetry can be used either way. So, with all that said, we do our 1 month reading. I think in the future I'll do this at the start of the video. I will sip water first. Okay. An inlet of rock and sand by the sea, it is I that you see. For many years the waves lapped against me. I shifted to greet them from time to time, but in others I was shy, hiding my coast. They were an expected presence, a constant in my youth. Slowly, though, I grew tentative of them. I asked the tide, why scrape at me? She answered, nothing has changed. Surely something did, for now I feel pain. The waves grew taller all the same. In high tide I reshaped my front, while in low I was left to deliberate. Were allies brought to my tidal gates? Investigating a smooth shell one day, I thought he looked rather plain. But then a friendly claw turned him over, revealing rainbow swirls and tear-streaked truth. I was too quick to blame the tide, too naive to behold the moon. A cove is always changing shape, forming a haven in each wake. An inlet made of rock and sand by the sea, it is I that you see. Okay, that felt very surreal. I just want to say that. If you are trans and you are trying to do a monthly thing, this gave feelings just now. I think poetry has a power to it. again, I'm an engineer. I don't do much in the way of literature. I love reading books, and I love reading works, and sometimes I'll feel very moved by works. But it's fun sometimes to just really just go at something. Sometimes if I'm feeling like very strong, like queer feelings, I don't know how else to describe that, but like very strong relation to the queer community, I will put a pen to paper, or I will make a video, usually a private video that I don't actually publish, where I just rant about queer things I'm feeling at that moment. So it's very interesting to channel that energy into writing this poem. And I kind of like it. I kind of like it. I think parts of it could be better, but I did fill it with a lot of symbolism, like a lot of symbolism. So, very fun. I rather like it. This is a fun exercise. I recommend it. Also, if you haven't read Walt Whitman, my eyes are being opened very slowly. I'm starting to realize some things. But that might be our crossover video. We'll probably talk about queer literature as part of the queer channel and as part of my book review channel, even though it's not a book. I could technically review Leaves of Grass. It's a thought. It's a thought. All right, with all of that done, the last thing we're going to talk about is just how I'm feeling about trans things, which I think is an important subject after 1 month. I've been thinking a lot about trans things, which, again, I've made this big decision to start testosterone, and the effects aren't here yet, so I'm still in this phase where I'm reflecting and contemplating a lot about what I'm feeling. And it's very interesting. Pretty much just like before, I'm having these fluctuations up and down between, like, I'm not feeling any dysphoria, I'm kind of feeling good with my identity, and then I go down, and it's like, I'm not feeling any dysphoria, and I'm not quite sure if I want to be a man. And usually that mood arises when I'm looking at cis men, and I'm like, is that me? Because I haven't had much experience in my life of looking at cis men. It's not something I do. I'm not acquainted with many cis men. I think if you were to list out all my friends, maybe like 3 out of all of them would be cis men. I'm just not acquainted with many. I don't look at them often. And so sometimes when I'm in these lows where I'm watching a movie or something like that with cis men in it, and I'm trying to process, like, that's what I want to look like. Or, you know, that's who I am. Not what I want to look like, but, like, that's what I will look like when I'm transitioned. Sometimes it doesn't register. So I'm like, do I really want to be a man? Not want to be, but will I look like that? Can I see myself looking like that? You can tell that this is a nuanced topic because it's hard to talk about. But when I'm in these low stages, I'll think about that. And I found that in these low stages, I get a lot of comfort having these feelings, because every time I rise out of it, or every time I'm in this and I have a new epiphany, it reinforces the fact that I'm doing HRT a lot. So these are a good thing. It's not like something you should just shove aside. It's something you should actually think about, because it's important to actually consider the possibility. But like, these are important things to understand, and they help you realize stuff about yourself each time you contemplate them. So this point has been rather significant the last month. Each time it comes around, I'll be like, am I sure? And then I'll do like some like distinctly feminine thing, and I'll be like, nope, nuh-uh. So my friend put me in makeup and a costume. It was like drag, I guess. And definite nope. I love the idea of it. I like the idea of being able to do drag as if I were a cis man, but I can't look at my face with makeup on it, apparently, with any comfort. So solidly shove that away. And then every once in a while I'll try to not bind for a bit, especially my ribs have been hurting recently, just a little bit. My ribs have been hurting, so I'll try not to bind, and I'll be like, nope, We want the binder. We want the flat chest. The flat chest is definitely still a feeling. So when I'm in these low bits, I will experiment with how I look, and I'll find, oh yeah, I do want this, and it will remind me. And then on the high end, when I'm feeling like very masculine or like very like channeling everything, I'm like, yes, I'm glad that I've made this decision. I'm glad I've started the road, because the road's a very slow road, and we do want to reach that. And especially in this high end, I'm thinking a lot about time. The passage of time is something, without getting into it. You can write poetry about that. But it takes so many years for everything to go through. And I'm still in college. I'm like in the latter half of college, and then I'm going to be out in the open world. And it's kind of freaky to think about how long this process is going to take and how much will change in that short time. And I've changed fundamentally in just 2 years. I would argue less than 2 years, but like if you were to take a snapshot of freshman year me and then take a snapshot of the start of junior year me, fundamentally different people. And so it's interesting to be in this mood and be like, how fundamentally will I change? Don't know. Probably a lot of ways. But if you can't keep juggling that per se, it'll drive you crazy. However, there's one more thing, and it has been driving me crazy. This is the thing that's been driving me the most crazy, and it's less a trans thing and more just a regular identity crisis. It's not a queer identity crisis. It's just a regular identity crisis. Who am I? Personality-wise, like, who do I want to be? I have this dilemma in particular, in part because of my family and how I was raised, in part because of my queer identity, and in part just because I'm a weird mixture of a lot of things that I've been struggling a lot with, like, what is my personality? What do other people see in me? And that kind of stuff. Just regular identity stuff. Some people may be able to relate what I'm about to describe. Some people may not. Entirely valid. But I pretty much feel like I'm at a point where I can allow myself to be a lot of different identities if I let it happen. And I keep holding back. And part of why I'm holding back and part of why I'm scared of considering like just opening myself up to just being however I would be is I'm scared of not liking the result. So I know that might be hard to grasp, but some of those things where I'm like, I've spent 2 years, the last 2 years, working on believing this thing, and I fundamentally believe this one thing. But do I want to behave in a way where I believe that? This is probably a little too complex. I feel that way sometimes with a lot of things, and I've been juggling that, and I've been trying to determine like which one of these people will I be? And I don't know. I'm like gradually allowing myself to be a little bit more open with how I talk, or like be a little bit more blunt about certain queer things and just kind of embracing it. But I'm also like, does this make people like me less, or does this paint me in a negative way for being blunt about gay men or whatever the topic is? And so far, I don't think anyone has been upset at me. I don't think anyone has been like, okay, rewind. I know GSA of all places is not going to be like, oh no, you shouldn't do that. Like GSA of all places or other like queer spaces are going to be like, woo, like be blunt about queer things. That's part of the point. That's part of educated queer community is talking about being queer and the experiences that come with that, whether or not our general society would censor those thoughts or that kind of conversation. So I'm starting to learn to not care so much about censoring like my every sentence per se. That's what I'm trying to say in that specific example. But sometimes I'm like, do people judge this? Like, are you supposed to be like this? But then other people are like it, so I'm like, okay, it's okay. I just have to remind myself, you do believe this, and it's okay to act however you believe if it's not hurting other people and stuff like that. So I've just been having a lot of those kinds of identity things, like a lot of them. And I think fundamentally, something I'll do to like remind myself or like feel better about it is list out hobbies. Hobbies are temporary things, or like likes. They're temporary things. They don't necessarily need to last. It's not technically going to be part of your lifelong identity, but it helps you realize that identity comes in a lot of different forms. So I'll list out, I like books. I haven't been able to work on the book I've been reading for a while now. Sorry. But I do love books. I do get very passionate about books. If people ask me to describe books, I could go on rants. Musicals, I can be very passionate about musicals. Even opera, even though I don't watch much opera, I can be passionate about it. Video games, stuff like that. Hiking, rock climbing, I can definitely channel some of that passion with rock climbing, even though I haven't been doing it nearly as much. Queer things, obviously. Space, I can rant about space, and I'm very glad to be able to rant about space, because that's what I want to do. Hopefully, we'll see. That might change. But I write down the list of all the things that like really make me who I am, and while gender norms could be a part of that list, I think these other things more so encapsulate who I am than if I act feminine or act masculine. So sometimes when I'm unsure about like, you know, society's image of masculinity, I'll just remember this list of identities I am and find some solace in this, and find some solace in grasping who I am now and just hoping that I'll figure out who future me is too. Yeah. That's how masculinity and like being a trans man ties into all this. I worry about like, will I act more cis? Or will I just act like me? I think I'll probably just act like me. But part of me wonders if being treated like a cis man will mean that I start acting differently. It's possible. I don't know. I can't predict that per se. So it's just one of those things that's like hovering over my mind along with the identity crisis. But I think just going through step by step with each thing and just deciding on the matter and living my life for a bit like that and deciding if it fits me or not is just all I can do. And that's what I will be doing. I don't know what my next queer video will be on. I need to go back and review. But I think one of the things we will talk about is ace identity and dating again. I say again. It's never happened before. But talk about that balance and what I think about that balance. Because it's something I've been thinking about a lot recently. And the ace date space just closed down. So it kind of makes the topic fitting. But I think we might cover something else first. But you may see that video coming in the future. Don't know. All right. I realized there's one thing I missed in the monthly thing. It's just one thing I missed. I've been working out mostly weekly. Not the last 2 weeks, but mostly weekly. A week and a half. I do have shin splints and other things right now where my knee is hurting and stuff like that, but hopefully I'll be working out again soon. I'm trying to work out consistently while I get testosterone, because you're supposed to. And I'm not doing like ooh, workout. I'm just doing like ab heavy yoga or abs or legs for the most part. I'm not like doing like humongous workouts. I'm just like starting to do a lot of belly things because that's where a lot of the fat's gonna move eventually. So, all right. I think that is it for today. I'll see you all soon, hopefully. I do have a lot of exams. I am feeling very busy, but no matter what, I'll see you guys in another month. Bye-bye.